First, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Hello, everyone. This is Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Nibbler. We are live streaming here out of the Fox 12 Oregon newsroom. I say it every time because I just want to remind you of that you can download those Fox 12 Oregon apps. Maybe you already have them. You're watching on there, maybe at kptv.com, and joining the conversations live or after the fact. But right now, we are talking about something, well, you see it there on your screen, leaving your pet a trust. It is an increasingly more common occurrence. If something happens to you, what happens to your pet? Well, this is what some people are doing, is doing that trust side of things, and there's a lot more to this than that. We're going to talk about this right now with our expert joining us, Don Ford, attorney. Thank you very much, Don, for joining us here. And, when you hear this, sometimes, I'll be honest, like one of the first things I thought of is you think of, somebody very wealthy leaving, like a giant apartment to their cat, or, somebody, like I'm sure, like a dog with an island or something like that. That may be part of this, but can you walk us through this? This idea of leaving a trust and this trend that's going on right now.
Yeah, so look, I'm happy to be here. Thank you. It's a great question. It's an increasing issue, not just with wealthy people, but just with the average person. Some people like their dogs more than they like their kids. I find some of these folks are actually more concerned about what am I leaving my pet and how are they going to be taken care of after I'm gone than how their kid's going to take care of themselves. So it's not just the wealthy, it's just average people, looking to make sure that their dog or their cat is taken care of after they're gone. It's great. It's a great idea, right?
Yeah, I mean, what are some common ways that people could do that to take care of their pet, after, say, something sudden happens?
So look, I mean, there's a range of issues, right? We talk about this pet trust concept, right? The pet trust is not putting your pet in a trust. The pet trust is creating a trust essentially for your pet. You can always, and this has happened for decades, you make a provision under your will. If I die, then my beloved dog goes to my sister, kind of thing, right? And you could the sister could just come in even without a provision in a will and just say, well, she always wanted me to take the dog, so I'll take the responsibility of the dog. The trust aspect that comes in with it is this concept of, okay, in addition to giving you my dog, I'm also going to give you some money to take care of the dog with. And so I've seen clients really wrestle with this question, and it's interesting to me the mindset that occurs with different clients. Some say, $10,000 is a really generous donation to my sister to take care of my dog. And I had one client calculate per animal. I think each animal will live. This one will live another 5 years. This one will live 7 years. And then did a calculation per year, $8,000 a year per animal. And came up with this, $80,000 number that she wanted to leave the pet. That was a little wealthier client that had the resources to do it. But really the big issue is I'm going to leave money to help fund the responsibility and the expense associated with the obligation that I'm leaving my sister or my friend to take care of my pet, which is frankly a responsible way to look at it because that person is taking on a financial burden to do so.
And are you seeing this? So you're seeing this happen with more and more people now, as we mentioned, not just wealthy people, but anybody really when it comes to their pet.
That's right. I mean, we're seeing it kind of across the board. I mean, I'm not saying that 80% of the people who come in to get a will are making provisions for their pets, but it is more of a conversation in the last 2 or 3 years than it has been in the last 20 years. So it's happening kind of across the board with different folks.
What are some of the big things for someone to think about if they're looking to set up a trust like this for their pet?
It's a good question. So look, I mean, the biggest issue is who are you asking to take on this responsibility, right? And is that person willing to take on the responsibility? That's a big issue. What is your thought process around what am I looking to accomplish with a pet trust? Am I looking to compensate this person in addition to just paying for the expenses of doing it? Am I looking to just, basically cover the cost, but not really compensate them for taking on the responsibility? And so, when you think about the $10,000 number for maybe the next 5 years versus the $80,000 number, probably one compensates the person more than the other one just reimburses for expenses. I think those are the two biggest factors: is who's going to do it, and how am I going to compensate them or reimburse them for expenses, those kinds of things.
So this will be something that you work out as an arrangement with this person, before, while you're creating your will.
Look, you can potentially leave it as a surprise to this person, but I would always suggest that it is better to talk to this person. Hey, if I die, are you willing to take my cat? Hey, if I die, are you willing to take my dog? I'm going to leave you a little bit of money to do that. Or maybe the money part is a little bit of a surprise under your will, but would they be willing to take the responsibility? Because you don't want to leave that responsibility to somebody and then they say, no, I don't want to do it. They're not obligated to do it just because you put it in your will. And so talking with them ahead of time, I think, is really important.
Any other big things that you've noticed you think the general public should know if they weren't aware of these kinds of trusts before?
So look, I think one thing that I've discovered recently that I think is an interesting development, kind of in the law, but really not, it's kind of law adjacent, if you will. Texas A&M University has a large veterinary program, and Texas A&M has set up a program where if you want to pay them a fee at your death, then they will take your animal and they will care for your animal as essentially a contract for doing so. So some people say, look, I don't really have anybody that I think would be willing to take on this responsibility. And if you think in terms of, sometimes it's not just a dog or a cat, a household pet, it might be a horse or something, a larger animal, which is definitely more of a responsibility. Here's an institution that will do it as a part of their educational process, but as long as the animal is alive, they will care for it. They will take care of the medical issues. They will, I presume, use it in some of their studies, but still manage to provide good quality care. And so they do that for a fee, which eliminates some of that concern of, I don't have anybody to be able to do that. And my guess is Texas A&M is doing it. They're the first ones I'm aware of doing it. But my guess is over time you will see more of a proliferation of these types of opportunities for providing that care. There's a cost involved in doing it, but it is a great option if you don't really feel like you've got a good family member or friend that's willing to take on the responsibility.
That's a really interesting use case right there. So Texas A&M doing that now, I could see that being replicated elsewhere too. Just for someone out there who's looking to do this, what is the first thing they should do?
Look, so every state's laws are going to differ, right? So it's you got to look first, and ChatGPT or AI has made this a little bit easier now. But you can go online and just research what are my state's requirements for doing that, right? That's the first issue. The second issue is, if you're going to actually create a trust, it has to be in writing. You can't just say to your friend, well, hey, I'm going to leave you money in my will for this purpose. Unless it's in writing, it's not going to happen, right? So that may mean consulting an estate planning lawyer to have them put it in writing formally. If that's an option that maybe is too expensive or too cumbersome, there's probably some online utilities or resources to be able to do that online. It's never going to be the same as having a good quality lawyer do the work for you, but you definitely need to understand, does my state offer this opportunity? And secondly, it's got to be in writing, because no trust agreement is going to be valid long term. It's going to withstand this person's death if it's not in writing. So getting that reduced to writing, getting the agreement from the person who's willing to serve in that role, those are really probably the top three things that I would suggest doing at the outset.
Well, Doug, thank you, for joining us here to talk about this and to share this kind of information. Anything else that you want to let people know about?
Look, I think it's an interesting topic. I think it's going to be interesting to see how the law progresses on this over the next several years. You think of, as you mentioned, the crazy story from TV or something over the years, but it is becoming much more of a reality. And so, it is going to be an interesting topic to watch over the years, and it's definitely a growing trend that you see with people. So I think it definitely solves a problem and fits a need for people.
Well, thank you for being here to talk about this. You're right, it is a very interesting topic. We've had some discussions about it even here in the newsroom just when we knew we were going to be doing this, and it makes a lot of sense now that you're talking about that. I mean, I guess as far as the alternative, I would imagine that does depend on state to state, but if there isn't someone to take care of your pet, does that mean they go to a facility, like a humane society or something like that?
That's exactly what ends up happening. And what ends up happening in a lot of cases is some family member, or friend ends up stepping up and saying, well, I'll take the pet. But there's going to be no compensation then to help offset expenses or compensate them or anything like that. And if nobody's willing to step up, then you're exactly right. They end up going to a shelter or something like that.
Well, Don, thank you. Appreciate your time and this conversation that we've had here about this.
Great to see you. Great to visit with you.
And for everybody watching, this is Fox 12 Now. We are live streaming here. We're going to go to a break, but we appreciate it. So you download those Fox 12 Oregon apps, watch on the website, wherever it is. And then, of course, you can watch after the fact on a number of different places as well. So feel free to share this segment. But we'll talk to you soon with more. I'm Greg Dibler. This is Fox 12 Now. All right. Thank you very much.